Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be going over some tips that I have learned through baking sourdough to take your loaf from a beginner level loaf to an artisan loaf. So I am by no means an expert when it comes to baking sourdough, although these are some tips and tricks that I have learned along the way, and I wanted to show you guys things that I have changed in my sourdough baking process. So without further ado, let's dig into that.
So here I am just measuring out my warm water just as I typically would, and then I am adding my active sourdough starter to that bowl and mixing thoroughly. This is the first thing that I changed in my sourdough baking process.
So the first thing that I changed in my sourdough baking process is I mixed my water and my starter together before mixing my water and my flour together during the autolyse process. What this is doing is it is dispersing all of that wonderful bacteria throughout your water. That way when you add in your flour, it is evenly dispersed and everything is combined together and mixed very well.
Once I have whisked my sourdough starter and my water together, I am adding in my flour and then just mixing as I usually would. I like to start with the spatula, and then after that has incorporated quite a bit of that water mixture, I like to go in and really use my hands to incorporate everything else, as it seems to be quite shaggy and very easy to work with when you're using your hands. I didn't wet my hands, that's why they are covered in sourdough, so please make sure you wet your hands before you go in and do this process. Then I am just letting my sourdough rest for about 30 minutes before I go in and do my first round of stretch and folds. Here I'm just slowly rotating that bowl and performing my stretch and folds. I typically do 4 to 6 stretch and folds every 30 to 45 minutes.
So a second tip I'm going to give you guys is to incorporate some coil folds in with your stretch and folds. And I found that this really helps have those nice air bubbles in your dough, but also have them evenly dispersed so they're not too big and they're not creating those gaps within your bread, but are more of a gentle, smaller fold. And you can also go in with your fingers after the dough has bulk fermented and do some dimpling, and that's gonna break up those larger air bubbles so your dough has that nice springy texture to it, but it's not gonna have those big holes when you cut into it.
To perform a coil fold, you are going to grab your dough by the middle and let gravity do the work by pulling your dough down. I like to rotate my bowl 45 degrees and repeat this process and let gravity do that work.
So the third tip I'm going to give you guys is to time your bulk fermentation process. So when I began making sourdough, I did not time my bulk fermentation process. I actually just let it sit out on the counter and came to it when I was ready, and then, did all my folding and put it away in the fridge overnight. But I will say, if you time your bulk fermentation process, then you have a great idea of when it is at its peak rise during its fermentation, and it's really gonna help your loaf have that nice structure and really develop the gluten well within your loaf. So when you bake it, it's gonna come out nice, springy, bubbly, risen instead of flat and kind of overproofed.
So you can see my dough has almost doubled in size here, and I am taking it out of my bowl and splitting into 2 to have 2 separate loaves. And then I'm going to go in and use some wet fingers to dimple my dough, and what this is doing is it's breaking apart those large air bubbles. Then once I have completed that, I am going to use the countertop to really shape that loaf and then let sit out again for 30 minutes. Once my dough has sat for 30 minutes, I'm going to shape my loaf and prepare it for cold fermentation. Here I am just going in and trying to tighten that outside of the dough to create a nice crust and really pull in the dough, and then placing it into my bowl with a tea towel. I like to use a grocery bag to put my dough in the fridge, and I use a chip clip to seal it off so no air can get in.
So my fourth tip is definitely a secret. So when I'm going to bake my loaf and make those beautiful designs with my lame, I'm actually gonna put it in the freezer for about 30 minutes to an hour before I start my scoring process. And what this is gonna do is it's gonna strengthen that outside of their dough and make it more firm. That way when you go in with your lame, it's not gonna tear and pull. And this is an issue that I've been having for a long time. So when I came across a video saying to put this in your freezer, I was kind of mind blown.
So after my dough has sat in the freezer for about 30 minutes, I'm just going to lightly dust with flour and then go in and use my lame to make whatever designs that I desired. I just decided to do a nice simple leaf pattern here, nothing too fancy, but I really liked how it turned out.
So the fifth and final tip I'm gonna give you guys today is to do an expansion score. So what this is a score that you do after your dough has been baking in the oven and it has had its initial score. And you typically do this about 5 to 10 minutes within the baking. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna take your dough out of the oven, or your loaf out of the oven, and you are going to take your lame and make a deeper, more precise incision score. And what this is gonna do is it's really gonna open that design up and really make it pop. And I found that this is really helpful when I'm making my dough, because my designs tended to be really flat and not very accentuated. So when I started doing these expansion scores, they really helped open up that design and really make them pop.
So here I am pulling my bread out of the oven at about 7 minutes and going in with my lame and making those deeper incision scores to really help that design to pop. And here's my loaf after it is baked. You can see that those designs have a nice deep cut.
I just wanted to say thank you for watching my video here. If you liked this video, please hit that like button below as well as subscribe. I will be putting out some more sourdough content in the future. Also, if you guys have any ideas of what content you would like to see or things that you would really like me to dive into, please let me know in the comments below. I would really like to interact with you guys more and see what you guys are kind of interested in and wanting to learn more about. So yeah, leave those comments below and I will see you guys next time. Bye.